welcome to the Christmas special. It's a time for reflection. I was thinking about this year and what I'm doing now. And one of the things that I'm doing now is building a mindset community. So I think there's a lot of us out there that know that there's more potential in us. And where do you go? Like, for instance, if you're religious, you've got a place of worship, be it a church. If you're a football fan, you've got a stadium. But if you're taking on a venture where you're trying to get the most out of yourself, where do you go? And I thought to myself, well, there's not a place, so why don't we make one? That's what I'm building currently right now. And I thought about taking action. And why take action now, immediately, and not give it much thought? And I'd like to tell you about my friend Paul. So I met Paul in 2006. I knew Paul for, I think, about a year before. I knew of him. We were working in the same company, both self-employed, and so I knew the guy, but it was sort of fairly cold. There wasn't, it was formalities and pleasantries. And I remember having an opportunity to go and work in a different area, and I took the opportunity and I went up to Aberdeen. And the next month, Paul had came up, and again, pretty formal. I would say that our relationship was all business. Paul was a sort of closed book, and eventually, after being there for a few weeks, I think he wanted to go and watch a football, and he'd asked if there was a pub that had the football on, and I says, yeah, I says, go and check this one out. They've got a pub and they're always got the football on. They do good food. And he says, look, you fancy coming along? So that was the first sort of icebreaker for myself and Paul. And I remember when he was there, he was big into football, and I can't remember who was playing, but we ended up getting finding out a bit more about him. So he was into lifting weights. And at that time, he'd probably put on a bit of weight. I couldn't believe it because he just looked like a heavy guy. He looked broad, but he was very, very heavy. And I says, like, man, there's no way. There's no way you've done this. So he, he starts telling me about his time, bodybuilding and training and entering some shows. And we had to developed a relationship. And while we were up there, because, it was just the two of us initially, we were staying in the same hotel, we're doing the same job, covering the same area, and ended up starting to train. But Paul had this weird tendency, a really unusual tendency. You probably know somebody that does this, but he wanted to start everything on a Monday. So it had to be the start of the year or Monday, the start of the week. So he could have the best idea on a Tuesday, but he would wait for the following Monday to begin, just as a preparation. It used to drive me crazy because I believe that if you have a great idea, you should do it now. A bit like what I've explained at the start. If you've got a good idea, go with it. We've seen a few guests that explain they just roll with it straight away. And I think that's the thing that struck me as strange. Like, this is a good idea, we should start now. But inevitably, it was the start of the year and it was on a Monday. Because I remember that it was around October time, I was sort of saying, hey, look, if you can train, we should do it. I'm a young guy, I'd like to learn the ropes. But no, he would not budge. Stubborn as a mule. So we went on to train, and we began training and developed this friendship over the course of that year that we were up there. Got in great shape, learned from all his experience that he'd had, and totally changed. But not only did I change and get myself into decent shape, became stronger, and I was building my body, but I gained a lifetime friend. So as the years went on, we went our separate ways, in terms of our professional lives. And, I went into the world of investing, and by all accounts, took it on by storm. But me and Paul were always close and always training and always kept in touch. And Paul wanted to go and start a business, and he was in various companies, and he was essentially running their operations for them. And he always had this idea that he could do it himself, but he had the mindset that he liked to be part of a machine rather than be the leader. And we would talk about it, and I remember I would say to him, I would say, Paul, look, you can do this. You're already doing it. You know, you get out your own way, just start. And he would say things like, you know, you should get involved, you should do this. And I could see what he was looking for, because he was looking for that safety net. He wanted someone to be involved with him. But I knew that this was something that he had to do himself, because he had to take that leap, he had to take that step. If you're out there and you're wanting to go from, you know, your first job, you need to take the step to go and get an interview. If you want to move to a different job, you need to then go and take that step. If you want to go from an employee to become self-employed, that's a big step. So there's all these big steps, and especially if you're self-employed and you want to branch off into the world of business or investing, that's a huge step. And I could see that was where Paul was at. And I said to him, I says, look, you know, we talk about all this stuff and all this advice. You should just do it. Just go for it. And over the years, we would have it would be a constant sort of to and fro of what you should do. And Paul would always come to me and say, look, you know, I don't know why I just don't listen to you at the start, because I get all your advice, I go and do it my way, and then I realise that what you said was correct, and then I eventually get around to doing it. I don't know why I should just save myself the hassle and do what you say I should. And I think part of him struggled with maybe a bit of belief in himself. And he wouldn't mind me saying that, because I believed in him. I believed that he could do it. I could see the potential in him. I could see that he had it. And, you know, I knew what he was thinking, you know, and it was sowing those seeds that he should definitely take the leap. So fast forward a number of years, he's taking on more projects, he's getting more work done, he's still not took the leap. And the time's right, and circumstances played out that he was faced with a decision to either keep doing what he was doing or to go and give it a go himself. And he, sooner rather than later, you know, better late than never, should I say, he decided to take the leap, and he went for it. And when he went for it, he had the initial fear, and that's expected. That's what you expect when you take on something new. What ifs, the doubt, have I made the right choice? Should I go back to what I'm doing? And I speak about this in depth in other episodes, where the old you wants to keep you where you are, and the new you're not really certain about, and you're in this sort of no man's land where you're trying to get to where you want to be, but the old you is trying to pull you back, and you need to let go of the old you and embrace the new version of yourself that you're creating. And I knew that's where Paul was. And he would say things like, you know, and it was just self-doubt, and I would drum it into him and say, look, you know, you're going to make this work. It's going to work, because you're already doing it. When you start this, it's going to work. Just do it. And he went for it. And guess what happened? It worked. So it started to work, and he started to really believe in himself, because he went through the process of, this might not be the right thing, to it starting to get a bit of traction. This might actually turn out okay, to, hey, look, I'm actually doing pretty well, to, oh, this is better than I thought. And I knew that it was going to be like that, because he was doing it already for other companies, and he got a lot of great traction. He got a lot of great response, because he's friendly, he's personable, he's got a good character. Although he makes mistakes, he's just a lovable rogue. You know, when he makes these errors, it's like having your brother that, you know, is quite clumsy. You sort of just go, that's the way you are. There's no malintent in what he's doing. So you take him under your wing, and you push him on, because he needed pushed. That's what Paul needed. He needed pushed. And he came round to my property, came round to the house. Sorry, I'm talking in normal terms. He came round to the house and gave me his card for his birthday. And we were talking about this contract that was about to kick off. So he'd been working away to develop the foundations of his business, and those foundations were in place, and now he was in a position to take on bigger work. And he asked me what he should do, because he was a bit concerned about it. And I says, look, go for it. You know, if you're detailed, you're thorough, you're organised, you should definitely have a crack at this, and it will be life changing. And now's the time. And the great thing about it is that he was starting to plan for the future. He was starting to plan at this point. He was planning, you know, expanding the business, working on himself. He was personally developing himself. He was spiritually developing himself. He was emotionally developing himself. And he was just getting it. And I think that it all came from the fact that he could get some self-belief out of what he was doing. And he was seeing that there was value in sticking to the process, and to just stay with it, keep pushing. That mental fight happens every day, where you need to go to war with your mindset. The old you wants to pull you back, the new you is where you want to be, and it's a war, it's a tug of war. So he was winning the war. He was winning the battle, and it was showing up in his results, showing up in his life, his personal life, his home life, his relationships, you know, with his friends and family. It was showing up in just his well-being. He was looking better, he was training better, he was more focused, and it was like he was ready to take off, just like I knew he would. And he popped out of the house and gave me his birthday card, and we were talking. He was like, how do you get the most out of yourself? And I'd mentioned to him that I was using a journal. I don't have the journal with me. And the journal, I said, look, this is what I do. And I plan out my big plan, and then I filter the big plan down into how I can take action daily to get closer to that plan. And this process, this format, is the best one that I've used that I think works for me. And I showed him my journal, and I showed him my goals, because we're great friends. There was no reason why I shouldn't show him it. And he's like, this is mind blowing. And I showed him my old journals, and I showed him, and he knows the results that I've had, but he's not seen the work that was put into it in terms of writing it down, planning it out, moving the needle. So when he was round at mine, I was showing him the journals, and he's like, look, I'm going to order one. So he ordered the journal, and he he ordered the journal just before he left mine. He says, that's the order. It should be here in a few days. And I was like, good. Well, let me know, and we can talk. I'll help you with it. I'll help you go through it, because he liked to double check things, and probably to a detail where, you know, I think he was maybe you know, he probably didn't need to go to as much lengths, but that was just him. That was his style. That was fine. He's my friend, so I would help him. Of course I would. He says, when you get the journal, we'll go through it. We're talking about the good weather was starting to come in when we were discussing. I think it was around April time. I says, look, you know, we're having the barbecue at yours, we're having the barbecue at mine. Great lover of music. Paul loved music to the point where you probably couldn't hear your you know, blow out your eardrums if you let him get to the volume controls. DJ'd in his younger days, so that inner youthful spirit was strong, and it manifested itself in Tiesto and GBX style dance tunes. For anybody that's outside Scotland, GBX is a radio show, and Paul's genre of music was very much of that ilk. And you know, we're talking about getting the music on and the barbecue on, and we would have making plans, but not just making plans for business and making plans for material things, but friends and family and barbecues and good times. And he'd ordered it. Says, well, let me know. I'll meet you in the gym, and I'll see you when it comes through, and I'll meet you early, and we'll go through it, and then we can train. He says, that sounds good. So he left. He left, and I noticed they didn't pick up his birthday gift. I thought, well, I'll take it out in the gym, and I'll get it to him, and I'll tie it in with the journal. So the girl that works with Paul, who gave me a call a day or two later, and it was unusual because I don't really get many phone calls. If anyone was going to call, it was going to be Paul. So I answered the phone, and she'd said that Paul had been found dead, and it was a shock because it felt like 2 minutes ago he was in my house talking about the future and where it could go. And just when it was about to take off, just when it was about to kick off for him, he was done. So I said I would head down. So I went to his house, and fair enough, that's what we found. We found him dead. And when we were there, you know, the shock's still in your system because you don't really know, you know, what do you normally do when you're, you know, your best friend's there on the couch. So we're waiting for the police and the I think the doctor to do the formalities, and the driver shows up outside. It was an Amazon driver. Some Amazon driver's outside, and he delivers a parcel. And judging by the size of the parcel, I had a good idea of what was in the envelope. I knew it would be the journal. And I remember thinking that the world can be a bit ironic. It can be a bit unusual at times. And I thought, here's the journal for planning for your future, and you're gone. You're in your house, you've passed away, and you're here, and your journal's arrived. And Paul's family came down, and you know, obviously completely devastated to the news because it's a shock to everyone. You know, this guy in arguably the prime of his life, at the absolute best that he's ever been, has died suddenly. So we get to the point where everyone's sort of came round, and our emotions have settled a little bit, and the parcel's there. And we opened up the parcel, and from Amazon, and inside it's a journal. But I don't think it'd have been the journal Paul wanted. And I remember I found this humorous at the time because it was something that Paul, you know, anyone that knew him would have knew that this is not an irregular occurrence where he's maybe ordered the wrong thing. And Paul was very manly and very old school in terms of things should be manly, and the journal was pink. There's no other way to put it. It was pink, and I remember thinking at the time, I was like, "You're still making me laugh, and even though you're away, your traits and the things that you do are still here." And if I had my journal, I'll probably edit in a picture. I'll show you the picture of it, because after Paul had passed away, the next time that I ordered the journal, I ordered a pink one as a little salute to my friend. And I guess what it made me realise was that when you've got something that you want to do and you think you want to have a crack at it, do it now. Don't doubt yourself. There's a lot of time that you can spend doubting yourself, and if Paul was here, that would be the story that he would tell you, that he wasted so much time not believing in himself, and me constantly telling him that he had more and that he could squeeze more out of himself, that he shouldn't have wasted that time. Now, that's what he would have said. And it's difficult to do justice to telling a story of someone's life, you know, so I'll do the best that I can thinking of what Paul might have said. But he was really optimistic about people. He would always see the best in people. He would always encourage people to do more, sometimes to the detriment of them. He would sometimes drive them crazy. And I'm thinking of his friends and his family and his loved ones, because he would try to push them, and maybe they'd get a bit frustrated with him because, you know, he was getting on their case because he wanted the best for them. He could see the potential in them. And I was at odds with the things that he'd felt, because he'd obviously experienced the doubt and not pushing himself and maybe not taking that leap. So it's something he probably seen in himself. And his life was a great story of why you should push, because you've got more in you. Paul had more in him. And it was that belief that you might look at it saying that it showed up too late. I don't think it did. I'm glad that he got the belief rather than he never got the belief. And I guess in hindsight, we would say it would be much better if he got it earlier, but that's life. And I would think the message that he would give would be not to waste time. Believe in yourself. If you've got a bit in you, then push. If you're going to try something and do it, failure's going to come. Failure's part of the process, right? But the biggest failure you can make, the one that will kill you, the one that will live with you your whole life, that you'll never forgive yourself for, is not trying. And even though Paul's death was untimely, I'm really glad that he gave it a go, because it's better to have given it a go than never to have tried. So if you see someone out there that's got a bit of potential, back them. If they've got a bit of self-doubt, push them. If they lack the belief, believe in them. Show them. Let them know that failure's part of the game. Let them know that doubt they shouldn't give too much time to. Let them know that fear is just in their mind, right? And if they're going to fail, you'll be there for them. And if they're going to give it a crack, you'll be there for them and drag them along, because it's never too late, and it's better late than never. And I think if Paul was here today, that would be what he would tell you. So that's all from me on this week's episode of Conversations with an Investor. A little bit more of a somber tone at this time to remember. And just keep in mind, if you've got someone there, give them a push in the right way. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Well, maybe enjoyment isn't the right word, but I hope you can take something from it. And Paul would have been a great guest. It's a shame that he's not here, and at least his memories still live on. And I hope that his life lessons can be a sign for you to push yourself a little bit further than what you've maybe done till now, and that you've got that feeling of more potential in there. Give that some attention, give it some focus. You can hit us up on all the social media channels. We're on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. And from me this week, that's a wrap.